Ellie sparing Abby's life at the end of The Last of Us 2 has to be one of the most controversial narrative decisions that I have ever seen. It's a topic that's been hotly debated for the better part of 4 years, and as someone who's played both The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 in just under 3 weeks, I want to put my 2 cents in and explain why I think Ellie sparing Abby wasn't only necessary for her story, but why it was a truly beautiful moment in storytelling. Now, the first thing I have to lay out before getting into the bulk of this video is how I believe you have to analyze these 2 games. A lot of people like to break up The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 into 2 entirely different stories. And while I do understand why people view them this way, I don't believe that's the way you're intended to. The Last of Us 2 is a follow-up story that very much needs the actions of the previous one in order to exist. And since Ellie is the only true playable character that we experience in both games, I like to view her arc not as 2 different separate arcs, but as one whole arc spanning 2 games. And this structure of thinking is crucial to understanding why her sparing Abby works so well. The best way to describe Ellie in Game 1 is a character filled to the absolute brim with hope. Growing up in a quarantine zone, locked behind walls, this is a young girl who's experienced a fair amount of hardship in her life, and longs to experience the outside world. When she first meets up with Joel and Tess, and they go beyond the wall, we get a ton of amazing moments where Ellie expresses her awe at the world around her. She's like a little kid going to an amusement park at times. Well, at least all the times that she isn't on death's door. The buildings amaze her. The skyline takes her breath away, the sunsets inspire her, and every little thing that we do in our daily life and take for granted just absolutely floors this young girl. Cars, music, magazines, planes, space, and everything else in this brand new world fills Ellie with this sense of wonder and awe. And in watching this character, so filled with hope in such a rotten world, the audience can't help but quickly fall in love with her. She's a bit rough around the edges, with a blunt attitude and a potty mouth, but for all intents and purposes, this is a pure soul. Not only that, but Ellie being immune gives her a clear and conscious purpose in life. Get to the other side of the country and create a cure to save humanity. Something not only admirable, but hopeful. However, something rather unfortunate begins to happen to Ellie. Reality starts to kick in. Only a few short hours into her journey, one of her new friends and protectors is bit and killed in a battle for Ellie's life. Tess's death is the first traumatic event of many that will slowly but surely start to change Ellie. She plays it off well, but this is a crucial scene where she approaches Joel about what just happened, and you can tell that under the surface she's very, very upset. And an important thing to note here is this is the second person's death, counting her friend from the DLC, that Ellie believes is partially on her hands. And this guilt is something that starts off small, but will slowly but surely consume her. Now, the next part of the story that I want to talk about is the portion regarding Henry and Sam, which is my personal favorite narrative plot out of both games. Henry and Sam are pretty obviously mirrors to Joel and Ellie. But unfortunately for them, their role in the story is one of reminding Joel and Ellie what can become of them if they let their guards down. Throughout this arc, we get to see a still hopeful Ellie make a friend. Her and Sam are around the same age, have similar interests, and even enjoy the same card games and action figures. Both Henry and Sam bring a bit of joy into Joel and Ellie's lives, being 2 characters that both Joel and Ellie get to interact with in a positive manner. Until reality kicks in, and this joyous relationship tears Ellie's heart apart. The night before Sam turns, Ellie has an interesting conversation with him. In this conversation, Sam asks her if she thinks the people who become infected go to heaven. And unfortunately for Sam, she says no. She doesn't think that they do. Which is a line that hits you like a truck once you know that he was asking this because he's been bit, and is terrified of the unknown that will soon be upon him. And the next morning, reality kicks in for Ellie yet again. Her previous friend becomes a runner that nearly mauls her to death, just for her to be saved by Henry, who shoots Sam in the head while he is physically on top of Ellie, covering her in his blood, right before turning the gun on himself and taking his own life. And even though we didn't get to see the immediate aftermath of what this moment does to Ellie and how it makes her feel, I think it's very safe to assume that this really messed her up. This was a kick in the teeth, if I've ever seen one. Can you imagine the guilt she must feel in knowing that in his final moments, Sam came to her for comfort and only found more fear? That instead of telling him he was going to be okay, she reinforced his fear that there isn't anything beyond this world. Not only that, but the survivor's guilt that Ellie is starting to feel has to be immense. This is now the third person who Ellie lets get close that dies shortly after the relationship starts to blossom due to the one thing that can't hurt Ellie. And it is at this point in the story where you can really start to feel the weight of the world coming down on the shoulders of our hopeful and beloved character. And what really sucks is this is nothing compared to what Ellie has to go through next. While Ellie has definitely been through a lot up until this point in the story, David's arc takes it up a notch. For the most part, a lot of Ellie's pain has surrounded her losing other people. Definitely traumatizing and very painful, but David takes it up a notch due to the fact that Ellie is the one specifically coming under fire in this arc. This arc finds Ellie truly alone for the first time. It has her being the one protecting Joel while he's healing from his injuries, and immediately Ellie feels different during this part of her journey. She feels far more independent, strong-willed, and hardened by the world around her. And this new tough exterior that the world has forced onto her is put to the test here. After being captured by David, Ellie goes through a rigorous process of nearly getting chopped up and eaten, nearly being SA'd, and then having to kill 2 men with her own hands in quite a bloody and brutal fashion. And these moments are some of the darkest in Ellie's journey. They're experiences that shake her to her core and further the toll that this journey has taken on her. But what keeps her going is the idea that somehow, some way, she will be able to help humanity with a cure. Through this entire game, through every terrible moment, the idea that her life will mean something pushes her forward, until that is stripped away from her as well. In killing all the Fireflies and lying about what actually happened, Joel stripped Ellie of whatever remaining hope that she had left. The once hopeful and joyous Ellie, who started the first game, has been stripped down to this angry and somewhat directionless character at the start of the second game. She's more just going through the motions of day-to-day life than actually living for something. Until Joel is killed. Once this happens, Ellie does have a goal and a direction in life. Revenge. And now is a good time to compare where Ellie begins Game 1 and where she begins Game 2. Game 1 starts Ellie off full of hope for a brighter future, and Game 2 starts her off filled with dread, ready to walk down an increasingly darker path. Now remember this for later in the video. Moving on, as the second game progresses, we see Ellie slowly lose herself as her path for revenge gets increasingly darker. With every bad decision, with every kill, whether it be self-defense or flat-out murder, we start to see the Ellie we once knew get stripped away from us. She becomes more distant, angry, and hostile, to the point where she values revenge over the safety of her loved ones. A decision that Ellie from Game 1 wouldn't ever consider making. Now, the number one criticism that I've seen thrown at The Last of Us 2's ending is why it makes sense for Ellie to kill all of Abby's group but not Abby? And in order to answer that question, we have to go over how the members of WLF were actually killed. Starting off with Jordan. Ellie, flat out, kills Jordan in self-defense. Sure, she doesn't like the dude and was pretty angry while she killed him, but the bottom line is, regardless of her feelings, she didn't have a choice, because Jordan would have killed Dina if Ellie didn't step in. Now the next major death is Nora's, and I believe this one is the worst of the bunch, due to the fact that Ellie tortures her in order to get information. But the context is important. To start the scene off, Ellie actually gives Nora a way out. She gives this to everyone she engages with, actually. She tells Nora that if she just gives up Abby, Nora can walk away from this. Which clearly shows that deep down, Ellie doesn't think she really needs to kill most of these people. Just Abby. But because Nora runs, alerting the hospital and backing Ellie into a corner, Nora forces Ellie's hand in jumping into the spores. So even though Ellie does definitely have agency in her decision to go after both Nora and Jordan, they aren't blameless in their own demise. Sure, Ellie is the one who initiates both conflicts by tracking them down, but Nora and Jordan threw fuel on a fire that said it was going to burn them if they did. And basically the same thing happens with Owen and Mel. Ellie walks in, says, "Hey, don't do anything stupid, and you guys can walk away from this," and lo and behold, Owen decides to do something stupid, in reaching for Ellie's gun because he wants to protect his ex-girlfriend. And then Mel also does something stupid by trying to stab Ellie after she shoots Owen. Again, I'm not saying Ellie is free of all blame here, but it's important to note that Ellie isn't a psychopath who's just murdering people for fun. It's more like she just keeps putting herself in chaotic situations that divulge into madness due to not only her actions, but the actions of the other people as well. And it's something that we can actively see bothering her, but at this point, she's in too deep. This black hole is already swallowing and consuming her. But you see, the decision to fight and kill Abby at the end of the game is distinctly different from the rest of these. The murder of Abby is something that Ellie has been planning and calculating for years at this point, which is why it's so unique compared to all the other people that Ellie ends up killing. Abby, at the end of the game, isn't even the same person who killed Joel. This is someone who's lost absolutely everything. Someone that's been basically crucified for 2 months straight, with no friends or family to speak of, other than this young child strung up across from her. And there is no self-defense argument for Ellie here. Abby doesn't push back. She doesn't even put up a fight at all at first. It's only when she is literally forced to fight because Ellie threatens Lev that she starts to. This is a fight to the death, purely pushed and agitated by Ellie, and Ellie alone. But in the final moments, right before she drowns Abby, she flashes to a peaceful moment with her father, and lets her go. And I honestly love this moment, because this is what separates not only Ellie and Joel, but Ellie and Abby. Even after everything, all the trauma, all the loss, all the anger, when push came to shove, Ellie made the active decision of showing mercy, of choosing a kinder path, not only sparing Abby, but sparing herself. And even though a lot of people don't see it this way, I find this arc to be quite hopeful. This is a girl who starts off with so much joy, only to have the harsh reality of the world rip it away from her. But at the climax of her story, when she's teetering on the edge of a decision that she can't come back from, she chooses the hopeful one. Ending the game on a somber note that even though she's made mistakes, even though the world's beaten her down, and she's lost stuff in the process, she didn't let it get the best of her. With the final shot of her arc being Ellie walking away into the distance, into this great big world, seemingly looking for a better tomorrow, just like she did at the start of Game 1. I just want to end this video off by saying, I don't believe that The Last of Us 2 is a perfect story. I think it's ambitious. I think it goes for a lot. Some of the things land, some of the things don't. But specifically Ellie's story, I found not only very good, but very personally impactful. And if you made it to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below, not only what you thought about my video, but what you thought about Ellie's character arc overall. And I will hopefully catch you in the next one.